Love affair for Michael Schumacher exemplifies their passion for the sport. But Germany is no longer a one-driver country. Heinz-Harald Frentzen and Michael's brother Ralph are established on the Formula One scene, contenders not only for the championship, but for Michael's title as crowd favourite. Today, Michael looks to increase his lead over Villeneuve by repeating his '95 victory, while his countrymen search for the admiration privileged for only one man. I'm John Watson, and welcome to Hockenheim for round 10 of the World Championship, the German Grand Prix. And the joker of the pack has been played because it rained 15 minutes ago. But let's have a look at Hockenheim. It's a circuit that is in the southern sector of Germany, 50 miles south of Frankfurt, and one of the most affluent areas of Germany. Jonathan Green's been working overtime this weekend down in the pit lane. There are a lot of stories, and he's going to bring us just one or two of those right now.
Well, John, the latest from Hockenheim is that there's a real buzz of anticipation amongst the 120,000 strong fans here. And that's because, of course, of Gerhard Berger's scintillating qualifying lap that put him on his first pole position since 1995 and his first ever for Benetton. Gerhard Berger, of course, is Austrian, but a bunch of Austrian fans come out to see him, and he considers this Grand Prix his home Grand Prix anyway. The other big news, of course, is ironically alongside him will be the man who's going to replace him at Benetton next year, Giancarlo Fisichella in the Jordan. But the other story that's really niggling everybody at Williams is where is Jacques Villeneuve? The championship is slipping away. It's only 4 points at the moment, but he's qualified way down the grid and given Michael Schumacher in his home Grand Prix and his tail up a real good chance to score points. So who knows, the championship could be won and lost in this race. We'll soon find out.
Over there.
0.239 mile lap. It's the fastest circuit, I think, of the whole year. 4 straights where the cars are doing over 200 miles an hour. Absolutely vital to get out of this first turn. 4th gear corner leads onto the long straight up to 219 miles an hour. This is the corner again from inside the cockpit of Schumacher's car. Vital to use all the road coming out to get the maximum revs as you sweep up towards the Jim Clark chicane. There's a 2nd gear chicane, very tight. Vital to get out. Of course, you use the curbs there. They're very flat curves. Pause the car at 199 odd miles an hour as they go right down to the east curve. Here, of course, they actually bounce off the curbs quite merrily, and you see Gerhard Berger on his way to his stunning qualifying lap yesterday. Then they streak down towards the center chicane. Again, they're pulling over 205 miles an hour as they sweep down there. Also vital to get out. This is the straight, leads them down towards the stadium, and of course into the stadium where they come in at 160 miles an hour. Very, very fast section down into the Sachs curve, around the Sud curve, the south curve, and then of course onto the pit straight. It's a low downforce circuit, very interesting, very exciting, and we'll just have to wait and see how it all goes. We're now going to go down to Jarno Trulli, who's going to give us his interpretation of car setup for the Hockenheim ring.
Well, Hockenheim is a very special circuit. It's a very long straight, so we must reach as high speed as possible. To do that, we have very special wings, and we drive with very less wings. And then another problem is the brakes, because here we reach nearly 340 kilometers, and so the brakes are very under pressure. So we use big brakes, big darts, and big braking pads. And so by using by the wing and by the downforce, we use very special wings, as I told you. Now this is a very special wing for high-speed track like this Hockenheim. And then we play a little bit by mechanical way to reach mechanical grip. That is the most important thing for Hockenheim too.
Jarno Trulli, quickest of the Bridgestone runners here this weekend, in 11th place in the grid, and therefore one's led to believe he's going to be a one-stop Grand Prix driver this afternoon. But let's have a look at this afternoon's grid for the German Grand Prix. On that coveted pole position, Gerhard Berger. First time Benetton's been on pole since 1995. And of course, Berger almost won this Grand Prix last year. Giancarlo Fisichella on the front row for the first time in his career. Superb performance by the young Italian. Mika Häkkinen on the second row alongside Michael Schumacher. Häkkinen almost won in Silverstone. Will he win here this afternoon? But the crowd's hero and favourite, Michael Schumacher, capable of anything, anytime, anywhere, any place. Third row is Heinz-Harald Frentzen, the guy under great pressure, and Jean Alesi, who may or may not be at Benetton in '98. Ralf Schumacher in his first German Grand Prix, a lot of pressure. Look in his eyes, watch him at the start, and David Coulthard in second of the Mercedes-Benz McLaren. Jacques Villeneuve has to do well this afternoon to keep his championship hopes alive. Eddie Irvine alongside him. Row 6 is Jarno Trulli and Rubens Barrichello in the two Bridgestone tired cars. Damon Hill, Johnny Herbert make row 7. Jan Magnussen, Pedro Diniz on the 8th row. Shinji Nakano, Norberto Fontana, row 9. And Mika Salo and Jos Verstappen on row 10 for Tyrrell. Tarsio Marquez and Ukio Katayama make it the final row for the Minardi Hearts. And of course half this field on Bridgestone, the other half on Goodyear. So as we look at the crowds at Hockenheim, we're going to take a quick commercial break and join the field as they make their round on this final parade lap. In terms of the Bridgestone, well, we think Damon Hill's on the optional softer Bridgestone. Derek coming down this second straight. It's going to be very difficult at the start because patchy track, the rain is still, or the track is still slightly wet, and got to get around that first corner.
It was absolutely vital, John, but of course having done that, they then got to overtake on the circuit. This is one of the places that I believe they can do drafting or slipstreaming to go by the other car in front and get by, but of course they have to get through the corner before it, that touch faster, slipstream, draft behind the car in front, dip down, overtake him, and then of course go down inside him under braking. But don't forget, yesterday in qualifying, these guys were locking up their front wheels merrily. All the time they're locking it up. They don't need to do that in the race. Yesterday I know they're on low tanks, but they have to be very, very careful today. Otherwise they're going to lock up the front tyres. They're going to get flat spots. They're going to have to come in and change them. So they're going to be very, very cautious. Remember, it's a very low downforce circuit, so consequently they're going to get problems with braking. They're going to lock up tyres much easier.
Well, the other thing is, of course, they're going to carry something like 160 kilograms. That's about 320 pounds worth of fuel for this afternoon's 45-lap Grand Prix. Most teams, we believe, will opt to go for a one-stop Grand Prix, so expect action in the pit lane around about laps 21 to 23. That's the approximate window. But if those are going to go for 2 stops, that's going to start round about lap 15. So it could be a very busy pit lane very early indeed. A lot of cars are making their way up onto the grid. And we've got to look at the start here because Gerhard Berger in that coveted pole position. Remember, he's such a great race here last year. Tears of sadness for Berger when his engine blew some 2 laps from the end. So watch Gerhard Berger. Likewise, Giancarlo Fisichella, he's never been in the front row before. That's a lot of pressure. And he's on the inside, directly behind Gerhard Berger's Mika Hakkinen. Now we know that the Mercedes is very, very quick indeed, but Michael Schumacher in the red Ferrari is behind Fisichella. Gerhard Berger will be on the right of your screen. That's the left-hand side of the track. We will get that head-on view of the cars. This is different as normal there. Berger on the right, Fisichella on the left. So as the field forms up now, listen, as engine revs build, the lights come on. When they go out, we've got a Grand Prix. A great start from Gerhard Berger, red, yellow flag at the very back. One of the 2 minorities didn't make it. Watch Schumacher, but Berger slices his way across. Oh, and trouble as we get out of that. Oh dear me, very messy indeed, Derek. That looked exciting.
Yeah, Eddie Irvine really came up there, but there's a lot of schmozzling going on as they came into the turn. And of course, look here, we got Fisichella really trying to hold off one of the Williams as he comes up the straight. Irvine's got a flat tyre back there when he had contact, so he's got to go in the pit straight away. He's well down the grid, falling back. So you've got, as we anticipated, we got Berger in the lead, Fisichella second, and of course Schumacher third. But Eddie Irvine's falling back already. There he is.
And did Irvine in trouble indeed, but Mika Hakkinen was the man that was challenging coming into that chicane, but he had to concede. But the speed of that Mercedes-Benz McLaren, watch it, because Mika Hakkinen is going to try and get ahead of Michael Schumacher quickly. But Gerhard Berger pulls out a lead. The relative inexperience of Fisichella showing in this opening lap. He's not quite sure how fast he should go or he can go, and he's got Schumacher behind there. Disappointment for Tarsio Marquez. That was the car we saw stopped on the grid, but the lead increasing, and second, third, and Eddie Irvine there with a rear tyre. He's had contact, and Frentzen comes in as well, so contact between somewhere. Certainly Irvine had contacted Frentzen. Right front, left rear, Frentzen and Irvine have had contact somewhere, I suspect, Eric, in that first corner. And disaster for Frentzen.
Yeah, just what Frentzen certainly didn't need, nor did Eddie Irvine, of course, because these 2 drivers are the ones that we talked about earlier. But of course, it's given Villeneuve that opportunity to break through, get through that schmozzle at the start, and of course, get himself on a good striking distance with Michael Schumacher just in front of him. Wow, it's going to be some kind of a race, one has to admit.
Gerhard Berger leads at the first lap. Fisichella, Michael Schumacher, Mika Häkkinen, Jean Alesi, Jacques Villeneuve up from 9th place into 6th place. But remember, 2 of the cars that were ahead of him are already in trouble. That's Eddie Irvine and Heinz-Harald Frentzen. But for the contender to the World Championship, Villeneuve, the dream that came true, he found 3 spaces in the place of 1 lap.
It's just what he needed, John, of course, and those are the brakes you need. Right up front, Fisichella is finding maybe first tear-off strip being torn off as
David Coulthard into the pits as well.
Yeah, they're going to change something. It looks like they changed the tyres on his car. He obviously got involved. Here we are at the first corner. Let's watch it. Coulthard flat-spotted a tyre.
No doubt what happened was he had damaged his wing. That's why he locked it up. He came into the corner and the front wing was already damaged, and that's where the wing was catching under the left front wheel. So he must have also been involved in that incident with Irvine and Frentzen. So 3 cars. Disaster for Ferrari, for McLaren and for Williams. Irvine, look at him fighting to get into the pits now with no left rear tyre whatsoever. You've just got a magnesium rim, but he's got bodywork damage, and I suspect their water liquids are coming out. Irvine's afternoon is over. He has sprayed, and now flames are licking from the back of that Ferrari as it makes its way into the pits. Frentzen right front, shredded by the contact. We don't know who was responsible. Was it Frentzen, was it Coulthard, or was it this man Eddie Irvine? But fire around the back of Irvine's car. Look, they're fighting to get those flames out, but this car is going nowhere this afternoon.
Notice he's particularly bothered about the flames at the back of the tyre. There was nobody there with a fire extinguisher. Not funny, but there you go. But of course Irvine's out. Just what he did not need right now was this muzzle, no doubt. We'll find out later who really started it. And of course, this looks like David Coulthard, or is it Mika Häkkinen?
David Coulthard, I believe, is creeping all the way down, and he will be out of the race as well. Frentzen's race equally, so 3 retirements in the space of the first lap. Irvine, looks like Coulthard and Frentzen. Into this, the first of the 3 chicanes. This is the Jim Clark chicane. Gerhard Berger increases his advantage over Giancarlo Fisichella. Michael Schumacher 3rd, Mika Häkkinen 4th, and Jean Alesi grimly hanging on to the back. There's the trouble, a broken suspension on Frentzen's car. And so that is the result of all that tyre flailing around. Irvine was attacked from behind. It may have been Frentzen, it may have been Coulthard. We can't tell at this early stage. We need to see a replay of that incident. But clearly the first corner caught out that group of cars immediately behind the front 3 rows of the grid.
Well, look at old Berger. He's gradually pulling away there. And, of course, Fisichella's trying to hold off Michael Schumacher, and Häkkinen's behind holding off Alesi, and Alesi's holding off Jacques Villeneuve. They're obviously going to have to settle down a bit, get themselves in a nice rhythm, consolidate the situation, and then get after the whole show. Michael, of course, remember, we said earlier, he's got the Step 1 engine. The Step 1 engine is the engine that they used last year and the early part of this year. And I think they've just opted for the safety factor, for the fact that this race is known for its fragility as far as mechanics are concerned. The engines have failed here. It's a terribly, terribly dodgy race for the cars surviving, and I think that's why Ferrari have opted for their sure package, which of course not the fastest necessarily, but it's reliable.
Gerhard Berger leads as we come up to complete lap 3. Fisichella still 2nd, Michael Schumacher 3rd, Mika Häkkinen 4th, Jean Alesi 5th, Canadian Jacques Villeneuve in 6th place. So stay with us, we're going to be back in a moment. Welcome back to the German Grand Prix. There is the sign P1 for Gerhard Berger. He leads as they complete 4 laps. This 45-lap Grand Prix here in Germany. Giancarlo Fisichella remains in 2nd. The gap now 3.6 seconds. 1.2 seconds behind is Michael Schumacher and the Ferrari in 3rd place. And there we are on board with the world champion as he pulls that rip-off off, going down to the Jim Clark chicane.
It's interesting to note just now, well, I was going to say let's just stay with him, but we're not about to. Further back, it's interesting to note that Villeneuve is actually holding up Jarno Trulli, I believe, in the 2nd Prost. And that is interesting, because I thought Villeneuve would be attacking this pair we saw go through there with Alesi in, and of course Mika Häkkinen. But in fact, Villeneuve is dropping back, and he's got Jarno Trulli right behind him. Looks like Alesi is about to have a look inside Häkkinen as they come down there, but of course looking and doing it are 2 different things. Very careful through this east curve. You've got to be so neat, but yet Berger bounces off those curbs, which of course does put tremendous amount of stress on the suspension, and one wonders just how long a car can last with that bashing it's getting. Good position here for Alesi as he slipstreams up the straight behind Hakkinen, but of course we know the Mercedes is very, very strong indeed, and of course the entrance to the chicanes is still remarkably quick. And of course, as they go in the corners, there's a lot of turbulence, even at these 120, 130 mile an hour turns. Very, very difficult for them.
Just further down the field of note, Damon Hill and Johnny Herbert, they're having a war for 10th place, but just to confirm the retirements that we've already had in the Grand Prix so far, Tarso Marquez, he never made the start. We saw that car pulled off. And then, of course, Frentzen, David Coulthard and Eddie Irvine, they all came together in that first corner. We haven't had a chance to see that. The world feed didn't give us the opportunity to provide the reasons how those three cars got together. We just saw them all limping around the circuit. But their afternoon's work is out, and I have to say that for Coulthard, probably not such a big problem. For Frentzen, a massive problem. And for Eddie Irvine, he didn't need to not be out there supporting teammate Michael Schumacher and getting points for the Ferrari in the Constructors' Championship. Now Berger's extended his lead over 4.7 seconds. In the last lap, he pulled out over a second, and that really is an enormous pace that we're seeing from the 37-year-old Austrian, a man returning after 3 Grand Prix layoffs from illness, from the tragedy of his father's flight accident, and leading this Grand Prix in Benetton, looking better than they've looked since Michael Schumacher in 1995.
Just because you retired early, John, I don't think you should keep on about these poor guys getting at 37, 38 years old, and they're still doing a good job. Believe me, as you get that old, boy, there's nothing like a good bit of performance. You've got tremendous experience, tremendous brains, and you're out there, you use your head, and you're really going to go out there and do a great job over these young guys that just fly by and dash off the road.
Derek, I agree with you totally, but I have to say Bernie Ecclestone does not want pensioners in Formula One. There are too many youngsters around, and they're bringing money. They don't want to get paid, and that is part of the reason Formula One's going through this metamorphosis. They're refueled, I was going to say, caterpillars out there that should become butterflies. Well, we're waiting for a lot of new young drivers to come in, and people like Fisichella, Ralf Schumacher, Alexander Wurz, and many more are the Grand Prix stars of the future, and Formula One wants to get them in now as quickly as possible.
I quite agree with you, John. At the same time, you need the Bergers and the Alases of this world to get out there, because that's why the people come to the races. They don't come to watch the Fisichellas because they've never heard of them. I know they will in the future. Anyway, enough of that. But it's great. I just cannot believe the way Berger is just gradually pulling away. Remember, he doesn't have to look in his mirrors anymore. He actually just gradually pulls away and concentrates totally on getting that perfect line. We saw every lap he did in qualifying yesterday, he went a fraction quicker. And the guy hasn't driven in weeks. I think it's phenomenal the way he's made a comeback. Let's just hope that he can keep the car in that position for the whole race.
Well, we had a look at this top 6 there, but directly behind Jacques Villeneuve, he's getting a lot of heat. The young Italian Jarno Trulli at the Prost, Jürgen Honda. And Jarno explained to us about the aerodynamic setup and some of the other mechanical changes to that Prost chassis here for the German Grand Prix. Of course, braking is at a premium. You're braking from over 200 miles an hour on 4 parts of the circuit, so you've got to get the anchors out. And he's doing a great job in pursuing the much more experienced and, of course, the contender for the World Championship, Jacques Villeneuve, and he's got to get into the points. He can't allow Michael Schumacher to consolidate and even, in fact, maybe improve position. The gap between Fisichella and Michael Schumacher was just a little over 0.2 of a second when they came past the pits. It seesaws around the circuit because of the nature of the track, but of course, it only matters at the start-finish line.
The remarkable thing is that there you can see the other yellow Jordan in the background. In fact, that's obviously Ralf Schumacher, and he's in 8th place. He's quite a long way down, which is very disappointing, I think, for him, because he did dominate on the Friday practice. He was very quick yesterday morning, and of course in qualifying he was at the front and then gradually slipped back. See, Michael Schumacher isn't doing too much here, as you can see about Fisichella, but you can see the power of that Jordan as he gets it down coming out of the Sachs curve. Michael comes up under braking because he's a star at getting in the corner on the brakes very, very late. But of course, as I said, remember Ferrari are running the sort of the earlier engine, the lowest spec engine, and therefore they want the reliability. This is a race of attrition, and I'm sure we will see this later on as we get into the race.
Well, as Michael Schumacher weighs up how to find a way past Giancarlo Fisichella and progress up into 2nd place, we're going to take a quick commercial break. The gap between Berger and Fisichella is 6 seconds. Welcome back, and here we're watching an enormous battle that's been taking place for 10th place. Damon Hill finally found a way past Johnny Herbert as they entered the stadium in the Ajib curve, but after 8 laps, Gerhard Berger's advantage is stretching even more. Over second place, Giancarlo Fisichella in the Jordan Peugeot, and Michael Schumacher in the Ferrari in 3rd place. Almost joys of look at that in the Benetton pit. I haven't seen these guys look so happy in such a long time. Watch Schumacher's car, the way, Derek, he slides into that second east chicane.
Yeah, well, of course, John, the Ferrari always does seem to slide more. He's got to be very cautious. I think that's why he's not really having a go at getting by Fisichella at this stage. He doesn't want to stress his tyres out too much. He doesn't want to make that extra pit stop.
Look, here we watch and see. Now look at the action. Fisichella there on the right of your screen. Suddenly Coulthard, look at Coulthard. But
you still
don't see what happened. Something must have then occurred as they came down out of first corner into that first chicane, because clearly there was no contact between either Coulthard or Frentzen or Irvine. Gerhard Berger comes on this final Opel curve on to start-finish straight to complete lap 9. Gets into double figures. Comes across the line. We don't even see. He's got full length of pit straight. That's some 1,200 feet. That's front straight. 7.7 seconds. Michael Schumacher a further second behind Fisichella, then Mika Häkkinen and Jean Alesi, with about a 1.5 gap between them, and then a further gap to Jacques Villeneuve, who has got still young Jarno Trulli within a second of Williams driver Villeneuve. Let's look and see. There is Irvine. Watch. Contact must come at this point.
Yeah, well, he's got it out of shape. You see, he was trying to hold it in tight, couldn't hold it, and slapped right across in front of the other car, and of course that was just enough, I think, to get his front wing tucked in.
Oh dear, there's an opportunity.
Oh my goodness,
Pedro Diniz has taken Johnny Herbert out as they come in to that, I'm not switch chicane.
It's coming into the stadium, John. They're just coming into the stadium, and of course that was it. Here's another shot of it, I'm sure, as they come. This is the great
now, this
pass.
is the pass that Damon Hill made a lap earlier. That's how to pass, come into the stadium. Perfect pass from Damon Hill. Pedro Diniz, as you correctly identified, tried to do the same thing in the same part of track, but didn't quite get it done. Of course, Johnny Herbert was alerted to the possibilities of where he was not quite so strong. But back to live action from the German Grand Prix in Hockenheim in Germany. Gerhard Berger leads comfortably from Giancarlo Fisichella in the Jordan and Michael Schumacher in the Ferrari. Mika Häkkinen now has got some clear air between himself in 4th place and Jean Alesi in 5th. Jacques Villeneuve in 6th, Jarno Trulli 7th, and finally young Ralf Schumacher trying to make that a trio battling for 6th place.
Well, of course, you've got Jacques Villeneuve, who obviously has not come to terms with this weekend at all, and having a terrible time, in qualifying, at his worst qualifying place of his career, I believe I'm right in saying, in Formula 1. And of course, it's given everybody the chance, Schumacher Jr. there, the chance to actually work his way through, because he's been very quick and was ahead of him on the grid, work his way up through, and of course they're now both going to attack Villeneuve. It's going to be difficult for them, but they have got that opportunity. Don't forget, of course, that Schumacher in front, although he's got Fisichella right there, he also knows where Villeneuve's lying and how many seconds he is behind, and that is his main protagonist as far as this championship is concerned. And right now, Michael is concerned in getting those points, because he didn't get any points at the British Grand Prix. Here we are riding, I believe, with Schumacher.
Doesn't that just make the hairs in the back of your neck rise? Great shots on board from Ralf Schumacher going into that east curve. And remember, a 7-speed gearbox on the Jordan Peugeot like Ferrari. And that's an indication of the kind of engine power curve that Peugeot and Ferrari have opted for. High top-end power. Let's listen once again.
And they come down into the stadium, John. Of course, it makes one sort of cringe yet again when you imagine that we actually used to race on this place without any of the chicanes at all. And when you watch them go through the east curve, you go, my goodness, I don't believe this used to be flat in Formula 2.
And Derek, horror of all horrors, we had to change gear manually None of this sort of fancy levers behind the steering wheel. Look at the understeer Ralf Schumacher has there, going through those two final open corners, losing a little bit of ground to the back of Jarno Trulli, and there the Jordan team see ourselves on TV. There you can see that battle taking place for third place. But of course we think Villeneuve may well be on a one-stop race because he started in 9th place in the grid. He could have opted to make the one-stop race strategy, whereas Michael Schumacher was possibly going to do two. Damon Hill into the pits. So Damon Hill, the first stopper for tyres. Damon Hill also started on the, as I'm looking down and see what tyre Damon Hill started on the softer of the option of the two tyres. So Damon Hill first into the pits as we go back to Gerhard Berger. Still leads by an increasing lead from Fisichella, from Schumacher, Hakkinen, Alesi and Villeneuve. Stay with us. We'll be back for the rest. Welcome back to Germany. There is the top six. Nothing has changed. And those moments away, back on board with Ralf Schumacher coming back to the circuit cameras. 7th, Jarno Trulli. Johnny Herbert, of course, taken out in that incident with Pedro Diniz some few laps ago. The battle for 6th place continues. Villeneuve, Trulli, Ralf Schumacher. Ralf Schumacher must be on a different strategy to Fisichella. He would not ordinarily expect to be so far back, Derek.
No, you certainly wouldn't think so, John, but of course if he got involved to that incident at the start, which he may well have done, that dropped him back, of course, and he has been involved in a few incidents, if he actually got dropped back like that, of course he's then had to work his way back through the field and had to restabilise, but makes one wonder whether he is on a different strategy, I must admit.
As cars now begin the 14th lap, and we can anticipate a business in the pit lane, I think is the way to describe it. Teams that have opted for two stops are going to start considering it. Forget Damon Hill. They didn't know what to expect the first time here with Bridgestone. They went on the softer, the optional tyre. There may be other problems we don't know about for Damon. But anybody planning to make two visits to the pit lane this afternoon, it's going to happen very shortly.
Well, the interesting thing is, of course, is that we got Berger and, of course, Hakkinen are actually... who's this?
Fontana in the second of the two Saubers. Spin at the first chicane. Oh, well, he's got that wrong.
But he's now facing the wrong way. Not a good place to be at this point. The car's coming in at 219 miles an hour.
Absolutely.
And there's this bloke coasting towards them in neutral.
So Norberto Fontana did a good job at the British Grand Prix at Silverstone and did a good job here, essentially, a little bit more practice. First time on a racetrack where he's got a lot of experience. Of course, he did German Formula 3 a couple of years ago. Eddie Irvine ruining that incident that occurred on the opening lap. Lost opportunities at a bad time when the Ulsterman is looking to get confirmation of the third year of his contract, regardless of whatever fees may be talked about. So Schumacher still third, chasing young Italian Fisichella, but really making no impression whatsoever on the Jordan Peugeot driver.
No, but as I say, I don't think he wants to, John. You know, this is a long race. They know it's a race of attrition. He knows that if he goes too fast, as I said before, he's going to destroy the tyres. He's running a course on the hard compound, and he, of course, what's the point of pushing it? It's terrible to say it, but if there's a pit stop coming up in the next 8-9 laps, what's the point of pushing it, finding yourself in front and then putting all that effort into it, and then finding yourself behind the guy again after a pit stop? You may as well stay here, save your car, save the tyres, and then get an extra few laps out of them, and then, of course, capitalise on it afterwards and get by then. And I think this is what a lot is happening. I think you're going to find it's all going to open itself up a bit after the pit stop. Then you're going to see some real driving. It's awful to think of the race in two stages, but I believe that's what they're looking at, these guys. They're waiting for the fellow in front to make a mistake. If he makes a mistake, you'll make the most of it. If he doesn't, sit there, follow him round, and then, of course, make the most of it when the opportunity arises.
Well, so far, an absolutely wheel-perfect drive from Fisichella, under pressure from the two-times world champion Michael Schumacher. So before those pit stops start, we're going to make one of our own, and stay with us. We are going to be back with you in a moment. Helps explain, Derek, the ability for Berger to pull away so comfortably from the rest of the field. We're on lap 16. The window is open. The pit lane is open, and Benetton are waiting for one of the two cars, and I anticipate Gerhard Berger is the man in the Benetton team that will be the first in, and that will be then the opportunity for Fisichella to take the lead of this Grand Prix. 12 seconds. Now the pit lane here in Hockenheim is quite long, but it's not the worst in Formula One, so the option for two stops, Benetton clearly feel they've had to take that chance. It is probably fractionally the quickest way to run a Grand Prix, but there's more area for error.
Well, of course, he is on the soft tyre, John. Fisichella's on the harder tyre, and Häkkönen's on the soft, and Schumacher's on the hard. So that is one of the reasons, as you say, that he's actually pulling away slightly in front. I think there's another little thing of interest that one should say that we didn't pick up yet, and that was, in fact, it's 2 years since a Williams or Schumacher went out on a pole position of a Grand Prix. That's amazing, isn't it, when you think of it? So all the more credit to Gerhard Berger for getting out there and getting pole this weekend.
It certainly is. Well, there it is, Alesi, in fact, in the pits. Benetton have brought in Jean Alesi. He is the first of the two Benetton drivers to come in. So on lap 16, Jean Alesi, now critical to watch this. Alesi was lying in 5th place ahead of Jacques Villeneuve. So it'll be something like 50 kilograms of fuel, about 100 pounds of fuel went in. 7.3 seconds, great stop for the Benetton team. Alesi gets back. Where does he get into the field? Well, he's going to go out behind the battle with Villeneuve, Trulli and Ralf Schumacher. So I suspect Alesi will rejoin somewhere around about 8th, 9th place. In fact, behind one of the two Stuart Fords.
But of course, I think a lot of that could be they brought Alesi in first because they wanted to see what the tyre wear was like on his car, what state his tyres were in, as to how far Berger could go on the set of tyres. I mean, the Goodyear experts, they had very little feedback on Friday because it was damp conditions, none yesterday because it was qualifying day. So consequently, they really have no knowledge at all of how these tyres are going to last. And unless Berger's time starts to drop away, they may as well leave him out there. So I think they brought Alesi in to check out possibly on those tyres to see just what state they were in.
Well, race leader continues round on the 17th lap. Comes through these final two corners. Will he dive into the pits, or is he going to go once more? He's going to go into the pit lane. Race leader Gerhard Berger is in on lap 17 into the pits. So both Benettons on a two-stop race. Berger has got to make sure of it that he can get in and out. For example, back to Jacques Villeneuve, who was running in 6th place. There's a 27.5-second advantage. New race leader, Giancarlo Fisichella. Great stop from Benetton. Out he goes. Can he get back out on the track before Mika Häkkinen and Jacques Villeneuve come round? It's going to be very tight. Look on the left of the screen. There's Mika Häkkinen. He's third. Berger comes out, just drops in behind. 28.6, 28 for Berger, 28.3 for Alesi. Superb teamwork from the Benetton team.
It just shows you how quick that pit exit is, because he came straight out of the pit exit and was carrying the same speed as Häkkinen as he went down the straight. Now, of course, he has the advantage of fresh tyres. You can see their sticker tyres. And, of course, he's going to try and make the most of this. But, of course, we're in a situation where that Mercedes engine is very, very powerful. And I think Berger's going to have a job getting by him.
And also, of course, Berger, along with those fresh tyres, will give him extra grip. The extra fuel weight he's carrying is the downside. But McLaren, traditionally, they've been running one-stop races of late. And remember back just 2 weeks ago what Mika Häkkinen and McLaren did. They ran a superb race. And they were on a one-stopper. Remember also, they've opted to go on the softer of those tyres. So the option tyre for McLaren, and trying to do a one-stop race, but Gerhard Berger all over the back of Mika Häkkinen as they come out of that centre chicane down into the Ajib curve that brings them back into this glorious stadium.
Is he going to have a go at going by? Is he going to try and get by with a slipstream? No, he's staying right behind him. Of course, there's a tremendous amount of turbulence as they come down that straight, and you've got to be pretty darn confident you're going to get by with your slipstreaming, drafting as you dip down on the inside. Maybe he'll just wait another lap until his tyres will really come in properly.
Watch Gerhard Berger now. Very important, Derek, to get into position, which he's trying to do, but he must not get too close in this final corner.
No, he wants to be back a little bit on what he is now, so he can actually slingshot through the corner and then pick up the draft of the slipstream of Häkkinen in front, and then, of course, zap by. Remember, this is the best possibility to go by because it's 220 miles an hour as they come down here, and I bet your bottom dollar that Gerhard's doing all of that in the slipstream of Häkkinen. But, of course, he still doesn't seem to be able to make the move on him. He's having a good look down the inside, but I don't think he's going to be able to make it because you've got to brake on that angle as you turn in.
Well, Derek, we've seen the hand of Benetton. They have come in at the opportune moment to do a two-stopper. Gerhard Berger, quicker out of that Jim Clark chicane, looks to try and find position to dive down the inside into the Os curve, but very, very difficult. Bumpy down the inside, but he's going. Great pass.
Brilliant. Now that is experience. That shows you what that guy has to offer. Incredible passing mover, very clean. Mika is a very clean driver. He saw him coming. He knew that he had to let him go because the guy was going to get him in a second. He didn't hold him up, and of course it was a clean pass.
Well, a superb copybook overtake from Gerhard Berger, and also Mika Häkkinen did the right thing. He knew he was being beaten. He didn't weave or wander around the racetrack. Some drivers still have that tendency, but that is classic Grand Prix racing from two stars, and I would have to say two gentlemen of Formula One.
Yeah, they didn't hold each other up. He knows that he's on a two-stop strategy. Of course, it'd be nice to hold him up a little bit, but he knows that the guy's got to get on. He's all over the back of him, and he went for it. Of course, now Berger is pulling away second by second, as you can see from that shot there. He's pulled out about 3 seconds on him in the last half a lap.
But Derek, of course, here is our race leader, young Italian Giancarlo Fisichella, leading on merit, leading from the former world champion Michael Schumacher, and he's increasing his advantage. Michael Schumacher, to me, looks like he's dropping back.
Well, he did get it a bit sideways coming onto the pit straight there, John. He saw the dust fly, and of course, if you let it fly, get it sideways, you lose that momentum, and you've just got to keep it going the whole time. Obviously, Michael's considering his pit stop won't be too far away right now, but what a wonderful moment for Fisichella. This weekend, he's signed to drive the Benetton next year. There's his man. Berger was leading the race just now, well out there, and of course Fisichella knows that he's going from one really very, very good team to another. Mind you, it must make you wonder sometimes whether he's making the right move.
Well, I think that Fisichella's benefited from the boost in his confidence. He's also driven here in German ITC, that's the International Touring Cars. He knows the circuit very well. He's very comfortable on it. He was very strong here in qualifying, and all those things build to having a strong race. But the important gap is between Fisichella and Gerhard Berger. That is approximately 11 seconds. Berger, having made that one stop, is only 11 seconds behind race leader Fisichella. We believe Fisichella and Michael Schumacher are only going to make one visit in the pit lane this afternoon. There is Schumacher. There is Gerhard Berger. Mika Häkkinen dropping back. Remember, Häkkinen is yet to make his one and only stop. Gerhard Berger is eating up this racetrack, and really, while it's great to see Fisichella lead the race, I think for the first time we've seen Fisichella lead a Grand Prix, and for Eddie Jordan and the Peugeot engine, they must be believing that they have a real opportunity to win a Grand Prix and to win it the right way by being the best.
Well, there you see Fisichella's.
So, as this battle continues, and we now anticipate pit stops from Fisichella and Schumacher somewhere around lap 23, we'll be back in a moment. Back to the German Grand Prix. We've got a high shot of Jacques Villeneuve, and the Williams pit is prepared, and it can only be for Villeneuve. Of course, Frentzen knocked out, and he's blaming Irvine. He said Irvine always gets in the way. Villeneuve into the pits, and we've got Mika Häkkinen also. So fourth and fifth place cars in the pit lane. There are the Williams team, there are the McLaren team. Villeneuve, careful, little lock up as they come in. This is a race not only for position, but this is a race that Williams have to beat McLaren at. They want to get out, get ahead, and McLaren have got the job done. Great stop from McLaren, poorish stop from the Williams team. And it's going wrong for the Williams team in this 97 season, a year when they ought to have dominated the World Championship, and it's slipping away. Jordan now preparing for Giancarlo Fisichella. We anticipate, it could of course be Ralf Schumacher, who's running back there in 7th place, but there the battle that's going on for 6th place. Jarno Trulli in the Prost Mugen Honda, Ralf Schumacher in the Jordan Peugeot, and next year Jordan will have a Mugen Honda engine and Prost will have the Peugeot for the 3 years.
Trulli's actually doing a very, very good job. He sat there very intelligently behind Villeneuve, and now he's sat there. You saw him actually catching Villeneuve a lot under braking. Very conservative, very sensible race. We haven't talked about him at all this weekend, but he's actually doing an outstanding job. We haven't seen anything, incidentally, of the Stewart Fords. I was wondering what happened to them so far.
They've both, I think, just been in the pits, but Fisichella continues on his way. So it may be Ralf Schumacher. The Jordan team is preparing for lap 23. So Michael Schumacher comes in. Michael Schumacher running in 2nd place. Into the pits, Gerhard Berger has now assumed 2nd place. Watch the Ferrari team at work, one of the best in the pit lane. So Ralph Schumacher, as Michael leaves, Ralph Schumacher comes in. The Jordan team get a bit of practice with young Ralph. They don't want to jeopardize any chance of victory here this afternoon for Giancarlo Fisichella. 29.5 seconds with their total time. More Michael Schumacher. Oh, Ralph, control it. The fuel takes so long to go in. Drop it. Oh, and he almost stole the engine. The anti-stall device that these clutches are fitted with managed to keep the engine running. Young German gets back into his home Grand Prix. 33.5, a long time. Just as well that was Schumacher they brought in and not Fisichella.
Well, then in front of you can see Villeneuve there. I think that was Jacques Villeneuve in front of Ralph. So unfortunately his pit stop was bad enough so that he actually didn't get back out in front of Jacques, which of course I'm sure Schumacher would have liked. There they go, they're going in there now. Here comes Fisichella, of course, he's storming up well on his own in the lead. He's got to go in any second to get his refueling and change of tyres. Of course, remember here, everybody, that of course there is no advertising sponsorship allowed on TV or in sporting events in Germany, hence the fact that we have these abbreviations and funny hieroglyphics on the side of the car, and the Fizzy on the top of one and Shuey on the top of the other one's wing. It's not a new sort of sponsorship, it's the driver's name, believe it or not. No, he's not coming
Jordan's keeping Schumacher out of Fisichella, I beg your pardon, not as long as we can. Let's look at the order. Gerhard Berger there hunting down young Fisichella. That's a lap car behind. That's Magnussen, I believe, or Barrichello. One of those. Looks
distinctly like a Tyrrell.
It could be a Tyrrell as well. So the gap between Gerhard Berger and Jarno Trulli, 21 seconds behind Fisichella in third place, of course. Fisichella and Trulli are the only two in the top six yet to make it into the pit lane. Michael Schumacher out behind Alesi. Now that is a bad position for Michael Schumacher to be in. Alesi has done very well after that early stop to keep himself ahead of Michael Schumacher, with Benetton now two cars running in the top five. And Gerhard Berger will assume the lead very shortly indeed. Fisichella running as deep into the second half of this Grand Prix as possible to ensure that when his pit stop comes, they've got to put less fuel in because they'll have fewer laps to do.
Of course, Michael certainly doesn't need to have Alesi in front of him. Alesi, of course, does have one more pit stop to make, whereas Michael will see himself through to the end of the race with the setup he's got again. Michael very obviously before did have a problem there. They are the setup for Fisichella, but Michael obviously was having a problem with grip on the car. That's why he dropped back from Fisichella, I would suggest. So, of course, he doesn't want to do the same thing again and destroy his tyres behind Alesi and have to drop back towards the end of the race where he should be attacking.
Giancarlo Fisichella comes into the pits on lap 24. And the lead of this Grand Prix will be handed once again back to Gerhard Berger. Berger, of course, dominated the Grand Prix from the moment the lights went out. A critical time for Fisichella. Very important to make the most of your entry time. Come in, calm. There's the line. You're going to get down to 120 kilometers, 70 miles an hour. The team making sure he doesn't run too fast. Good stop. Gerhard Berger is coming across the line to take the lead once again this afternoon. Quick stop, 5.7 seconds. So the Jordan team did a good job with Fisichella, better than with Ralf Schumacher.
That was an outstanding pit stop. It's the best one we've seen. And of course he comes out ahead of Schumacher and of course Alesi, and that is not exactly what Michael Schumacher wanted either. Not at all, but of course, Eric, as you mentioned, Jean Alesi will be back in the pits. He will have two stops, but that battle that's taken place, that has gone on all race between Fisichella and Schumacher, is now being interrupted by the presence of Jean Alesi. And unless an Alesi can get his act together and claw his way towards Fisichella, well, that looks to me like Fisichella's en route for a very strong Grand Prix indeed. But, well, let's remember, of course, that Alesi wasn't actually very far behind Michael Schumacher at the previous stop. So we've got Fisichella leads and Berger makes a mistake. No, Alesi, all right, Alesi at the east curve. Now, will that be a penalty for Jean Alesi? He missed the corner, and that may well be a time penalty for the Frenchman. An error on the entry into that east chicane. Well, he just didn't want to lock the brakes up, did he? So I guess he figured it was better to go straight on and just dap between the curb. They've had a good look at it. That was the old circuit, incidentally, that he ran on to miss the chicane out. And there's Michael in reality, it may only be a penalty, in fact, if he gained position. But it's given Schumacher
the impetus to close up to the Frenchman. His tyres, of course, when they're very hot, going onto a very dirty part of what was a Grand Prix track. So we're looking for...
Well, he's locking up brakes there,
yes,
John.
He is.
Benetton was, and he doesn't need that right now because that's going to destroy his tyres. But of course, he is anticipating an earlier stop.
Fisichella comes across the line. Alesi maintains position. Michael Schumacher right behind him. Stay with us. We'll be back in a moment. Gerhard Berger leads from Giancarlo Fisichella, Jean Alesi, Michael Schumacher, Mika Häkkinen, and Jacques Villeneuve in 6th place. And now on lap 27 of a 45-lap Grand Prix this afternoon in Germany. And Gerhard Berger really in total control, but of course he has a second visit to the pits. 17.5 seconds is his advantage. Now, if he wants to retain the lead when he makes his second stop, he's got to find minimally another 10 seconds. And that, I think, is virtually impossible, Derek. I can't see it in the time available that Berger is going to pull out something like another 10 seconds.
I think the thing we should mention to those of you at home, one of the reasons that Berger's making 2 pit stops is because he's on a softer Goodyear tyre. The fact may be that he actually got pole position yesterday was because he was also on that very tyre. The tyre you qualify on, you have to race on. Not the worn tyre, but you have to have that same compound and construction. So consequently, Gerhard probably got that advantage yesterday through the softer compound. And of course, during the race today, it's giving that advantage, but at the same time, it means that he has to stay on that compound for the whole race. And therefore, you have the consideration that, of course, he will have to make this second pit stop. And that is his disadvantage. There's Niki Lauda sitting in on the pits, in the Ferrari pit. He's an advisor, I believe I'm right in saying, to Ferrari. It's good to see him back after his major operation.
Yes, he had a kidney transplant, and in fact, Nicky has now got 3 kidneys. The spare kidney was donated by his brother, and he said, listen, guy, you got 2 kidneys. Give me one of them. I need it. You don't. And he did.
What a brother.
Well,
I think he helped him out
gesture.
of the house or something, but nevertheless, it's still a wonderful gesture. I don't think giving away part of your health is worth any houses or anything in the world, but if it's your brother, well, you do it, don't you?
Indeed you do. So
now, of course, we've got the situation where Verstappen could well be holding up Alesi, and that is something we don't need at this stage. But of course, that car, the Tyrrell, is so much slower that Alesi should sweep by him at any stage at all. A bit of a slipstream off in. Michael Schumacher is going to do the same, draft off the back of Verstappen, but I think he's too far back actually to make much impression before they get down into the chicane. Is he going to have a look down the inside? No, he's still staying behind him.
Well, of course, people like Tyrrell with the Ford V8 engine way underpowered compared to Ferrari and to Benetton with the Renault engine. They just take downforce off the car, so they do have a reasonable straight line speed, but of course it frustrates Michael Schumacher. He doesn't get the natural or easy run past, and he does sneak by as they come into the east chicane. A look of concern on the face of the Ferrari team in the garage. They wonder, have they got enough performance? Are they going to get the job done this afternoon? And right now, on present performance, the answer, I'm afraid, is no.
Well, they've got to get points, and as long as he keeps getting a few more points than Jacques Villeneuve, it gives them the opportunity where, of course, engine attrition is not so high. Maybe at the next race, the races coming up, Belgium, at Spa and so on, but of course they can actually use the more powerful engine which we saw him use so well to effect in previous races.
We're watching this battle with Alesi. There's another one, Häkkinen, Jacques Villeneuve and Jarno Trulli. So that's a battle going on 5th, 6th and 7th. And all 3 drivers, and there Ralf Schumacher squeaking into the back, trying to make it a 4-way battle for 5th place. Now let's have a watch of this, because these guys, all these 4 cars will not stop. They will be on track for the remaining laps of this 45-lap Grand Prix.
Because it makes you reflect a little bit to the Silverstone Grand Prix, the British Grand Prix, when, of course, David Coulthard was doing a similar thing to this, and he was holding up the group behind. Nevertheless, and of course, Häkkinen was one of the people he was holding up, and then went on to be really the moral victor of the race. But, of course, all these guys are out there giving it everything they possibly can. They're all on the same tyre setup, as far as, of course, Trulli is on Bridgestones. The other 3 are on Goodyears. But nonetheless, they're all out there really trying to get a good position. They're trying to draft, make the most of it. But remember, poor old Ralf Schumacher back there is getting the most awful turbulence from these cars in front, and there's very little he can do, because if he tries to go by one, there isn't room for him to get by and really settle into a good spot. It looks it as they come down the straight, but when they get to braking, of course, it all concertinas up there. Very difficult to get by. Oh, there's one of the stewards puking out some smoke at the back. That isn't a good sign for Ford yet again. My goodness me, they're having such a dismal year this year. Fords have really got to get it together. They just aren't having the luck. They're not having anything that we've seen of Fords in the past. But let's not forget, motor racing is so high tech these days. It's different to the early days when Ford Cosworths were the be-all and end-all in Grand Prix racing. Now they're getting lots of troubles with these engines, and it isn't doing poor old Jackie Stewart very good in his first year back as a Grand Prix owner, or his first year as a Grand Prix owner, should I say.
So Magnussen now makes the list of retirements up to 8, and we're going to take a quick break as we watch. There's the signal that happened as Magnussen came down. You can see the telltale haze. Well, that isn't a haze, that is nuclear. Jan Magnussen, 8th retirement this afternoon. We've got some 14 cars remaining in this Grand Prix. Stay with us and join us for the remainder. There are the positions. Gerhard Berger, at the end of 30 laps, leads by around about 17.5 seconds or so from Giancarlo Fisichella. Jean Alesi still 3rd, Michael Schumacher 4th, Mika Häkkinen, Jacques Villeneuve, Jarno Trulli and Ralf Schumacher are squabbling over 5th place. And that really is right now the feature of the race. So Alesi for Benetton in for the 2nd time, so that will see him drop down to certainly probably 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, could even be 9th. They of course started on that soft compound, that's the optional tyre. So Michael Schumacher now in 3rd, his eyes will be clearly focused on Fisichella as that battle for 5th goes by, and Alesi comes out, but he ain't going to make it. Those 4 cars from 4th through 7th, and Alesi now joins in 8th place.
That is really tough for Alesi. It's going to be very tough for Berger too, because he's going to come and he's going to lose about 10 seconds on the position he's got, which is going to take him well back towards the clutches of those guys. And I really thought that he might have a crack at winning this. It does look like it could be Giancarlo Fisichella, but we've got Schumacher there, who now has a clearer bit of road in front of him as he looks up towards Fisichella. And of course, it's going to be quite a battle. It makes me wonder why. Let's just listen as let's ride with the Jordan for the moment. Hear him going down that box.
Schumacher down into that chicane. There you see Jean Alesi after that 2nd and final stop. Of course, the 4 cars ahead of him will not be visiting the pit lane. They've made their one and only stop this afternoon. A pretty daunting task in hand for the Frenchman. To make 1 position, let alone 4, I would think, is tough. Just listen to that V10 Peugeot engine.
Well, they've never seen their car so long in the lead for a while, have they, John? Wonderful to see a Jordan out front. Eddie's persevered, worked his way through. He always reminds me very much, watch him just playing, he moves his hand across to touch something. I don't quite know, is that a brake adjustment he's doing on the side, or is the screen coming loose?
Well, I don't know. There's 2 little, you can see almost like wing nuts on either side of the cockpit. And that's Ralf Schumacher. He's adjusting something. We can't tell what it is. Eddie Jordan looking, well, very relaxed, bearing in mind that he could be facing his greatest moment. I mean, to win your Grand Prix for a team like Jordan, who've come from basically nothing in terms of financial backing to survive in Formula 1 and to be in this position, to actually be in position to win a Grand Prix. Now, there's something, you're right, Derek, that is jiggling around. It's obviously distracting Ralf Schumacher, and once you know it's there, your eye line is always going to pick it up.
Well, of course, the trouble is, John, it could hinder his hand. You see, you can see the flat top of it, and he could be touching his hand as he's trying to put opposite lock on. It's probably catching the back of his glove.
Well, I just wonder, is it something that these support pads, you know, the safety pads that they have down the side of the cockpits, whether they are attached by some form of wing nut or whatever. But
his hand's very close to it, as you can see. Makes you, anyway, we can't surmise just what it is, but it certainly would detract from his performance right now, make him very concerned. And of course, look at Maker out there. He really has got a problem. He's got Villeneuve all over the back of him. And Villeneuve really needs to make a move fairly soon, because he really needs more points than he's got right now. He's going to give Schumacher a run for this championship, and he certainly hasn't looked good at this race so far, in fact at all this weekend. And of course, right behind him we have the Bridgestone shod cross car, truly doing an excellent job. As I said, we haven't talked much about him this weekend, but he's been there. He's doing a super job. And to actually be in a group, I don't think you at home realise just how difficult it is. You're in the back in a group. You've got all this turbulence. You're trying to concentrate on the guy in front. You're trying to keep up with him at the same time. You're trying to stop the fellow behind from overtaking you. So you actually start to out-fumble each other just a little bit, and you end up slowing each other down somewhat. Of course, there's Fisichella, I think, going through there.
And they got Norberto Fontana between them. There's Michael Schumacher in third place, really just hanging on by the skin of his teeth, 6 seconds behind the young Italian, who's driven an absolutely wheel-perfect Grand Prix this afternoon, under pressure all the way from Michael Schumacher and the Ferrari team. Of course, Fisichella, funny situation, he has signed a contract with Benetton, but Flavio Briatore is in fact also his own manager. So Briatore, a bit of a Svengali in the motor racing world, and one of the promises we understand made to Fisichella was that, you know, sign this long-term contract with me, and over a 5-year period I'll earn you $25 million. Well, that's a fair amount of money for anybody to consider. And Fisichella on the crest of a wave right now, running in second place there. The sign for Gerhard Berger in after 33 laps on the 34th. So join us to see Berger, race leader, make his final pit stop. Will he lead when he returns to the track, or will it be young Italian Fisichella? Welcome back, Berger in the pit lane. He had a 19.6 advantage over Giancarlo Fisichella, who is in the stadium. Berger comes to a stop, the jacks go up, the wheels are off, the fuel's going in. Will he get back on track? Before he's going, he's off. It's going to be a battle now. Fisichella on track. Berger in the pit lane. Can Berger sneak out onto the track, retain his lead? It's nip and tuck. No, he hasn't.
Way.
Side by, almost just behind. Berger rejoins, less than a second behind Fisichella. Fisichella leads the Grand Prix. The charge to the finish. 11 laps of this Grand Prix remain. The young Italian is in control, but Gerhard Berger, who dominated all weekend, is now back in the race in second place. And this Grand Prix has come alive with a vengeance, Eric.
Absolutely, it's going to be unbelievable. Berger, of course, has got fresh tyres, and of course he's got momentum. He knows what to do, but of course getting by this guy is going to be a different thing altogether to staying with him. But nevertheless, we're going to watch this, see what happens. Now, just see what happens here. There's a moment just now, something that happened. Right, look at that. That is Villeneuve losing control, I believe, and going out into the kitty litter. That's unbelievable
Villeneuve,
situation.
A moment ago has gone in at the clock. Rubens Barrichello, look at that, another gusher from Ford this afternoon. 2 mega blow-ups. Ford had 8 in total back at Silverstone, the British Grand Prix, a further 2 here. And I don't know what Ford is going to do to get those engines reliable and powerful, but Jackie Stewart will be pulling out his
Berger has taken the lead. Berger has got by Fisichella. He slipped by him, obviously. I would suggest coming into the east curve. I suggest that's probably what he did, and he's pulling away already. This would be unbelievable to see Gerhard Berger win this race. Here's the overtake now. I'm still not quite sure where they're coming down to, John, but he pulls out, I think, having come out of the east curve. In fact, yeah, probably coming out of the east curve.
Yes, it was a perfect move. This is a replay, of course, because this happened when we were watching all that other replay action on screen. Gerhard Berger assumes the lead. Giancarlo Fisichella, maturity for a young man. He didn't make an issue of it. He knew that on the day Berger was the quicker of the two, and already you can see he's pulled out nearly a 2-second advantage over the young Italian. But I mean, no discredit to Fisichella. He's driven superbly, and the Jordan team indicating that on the high-speed circuits they have got to be taken seriously as Michael Schumacher and Ferrari or Villeneuve. There we look again as they come into that Senna chicane, having just gotten past Fisichella. So excellent race going on for the lead on lap 34. Cars now out on their 35th of 45 laps, 10 laps remaining. First, Gerhard Berger. Second, Giancarlo Fisichella. Third, Michael Schumacher. Fourth, Mika Häkkinen. Fifth, Jarno Trulli. While this Grand Prix continues, there is the classification. Berger, Fisichella, Schumacher, Häkkinen, Trulli, Schumacher. We'll be back in a minute. Welcome back to Hockenheim. on lap 35. And 9 laps remaining. So still Gerhard Berger continues to pull away. Ralf Schumacher down in 6th. Jean Alesi got trapped. He came out just behind that bunch of 4 cars. Of course, it was that bunch that saw Jacques Villeneuve retire up at the Jim Clark chicane. But listen to Alesi, comes down into the east curve so late in the brakes.
I love the way you say Villeneuve retired. He actually flew off the road and retired, John. Makes it like he pulled over and stopped. I'm sure Frank Williams is going to be pretty darn upset with his 2 drivers today. But this motor racing, you know, you can't expect drivers to be immaculate all the time. There's a big group, and why Jacques lost it, well, I guess we'll probably never know. But he certainly lost it sort of in the first right-hander part of that chicane. It's the most unusual place to do it. But, of course, there is a lot of turbulence in there. And, of course, the tyres are getting quite worn now. They're halfway through the setup. So, of course, you know, anything can happen. This turbulence factor is all important.
And they were a big battle with Villeneuve and Mika Häkkinen, truly Ralf Schumacher. And it looks, as you say, Derek, it was just simply a driver error. But until Villeneuve tells the full tale, we don't know. Maybe he had a brake problem. But the thing that I can assure you will cause more problem will be when Frank Williams gets back home. Villeneuve and Frentzen will be brought in, and they've really now got to focus on what is going wrong in the team that really still should be dominating not just this Grand Prix but dominating the World Championship, and they're giving it away.
Yeah, but I think it's a team effort, John. They're all in it together. We know it's a team. The drivers are just the icing on the cake. Of course it's a matter of feedback, but I still think at the same time that, of course, the team have to be around there, have to be working with them towards this end. And it seems ever since the beginning of the year, I know they were the perfect car, the ideal car for the year, and everybody else has been catching up. And of course the Williams is really in its latter part of its development, and everybody's come up with more power, of course, to match the Renault engine, which of course Berger has got at this point. And of course it's vital that Williams kept up momentum. They haven't really kept it up in the development, and I think the whole team is questionable as to what they've been doing to keep the car there. And don't forget, of course, they did lose Adrian Newey. And where did he go? He's gone to McLaren, so he's about to start work at any time at all, and no doubt he's been doing some homework. But of course the McLaren has improved in the last few months as well.
Gerhard Berger's lead has dropped marginally, but of course he was having to pass some of the lap cars, one of whom was Damon Hill. Damon running down in 9th place and on course for a 2nd consecutive race finish. There we see Giancarlo Fisichella darts out. Damon Hill comes down to lead onto the straight. Michael Schumacher a further 6 seconds behind. Jarno Trulli 5th, Ralf 6th. So consolidation from Michael Schumacher, that 3rd place. If he retains it, we'll see him increase his championship lead by 8 points over Villeneuve. Stay with us.
So.
Oh no, I can't believe it, Giancarlo Fisichella. He's had a left rear tyre completely shredded. He's spun just at the entrance to the pit lane. Thank goodness he kept the engine running. He's trying to and get it in. Fisichella running in 2nd place, driving the Grand Prix of his life. That tyre, we don't know what happened. We didn't see it on screen. Suddenly in the stadium we saw him limping in, and our left rear tyre, he must have picked up debris somewhere in the circuit which has caused that tyre to shred. Now the Jordan team have got the problem of getting the back of the car raised up. They've got to put a manual jack under it. This has turned from glory to absolute disaster for both Jordan. Look at that rear tyre. Absolute trash. Ferrari waiting also. What is going on? Ferrari have prepared also. Has there been contact? Has something happened that we haven't seen? Did Fisichella some way find himself in position with Michael Schumacher? Well, there is Michael Schumacher. And the Ferrari team are showing preparations to come into the pits.
I don't think that Michael actually there was any contact, because if we saw Fisichella slipstream by Damon Hill about 3 laps ago and go by him, and obviously Schumacher is just about to do the same thing. So here we are, we're going to get a shot. I think the time is blew.
Look at that.
It blew big time, and all the bodywork and bits of rubber flying down the road. And of course there's Damon behind and Schumacher behind him. So there was no contact. It was one of those very, very unfortunate things. The tyre just gave look at him, and the
Derek, he's fighting for his life, because the left rear of the car is down, the right front is up. He's got virtually no steering, he's got virtually no braking, and he's coming into a corner where he needs to lose something like maybe 80 miles an hour.
Well, he did actually go off the road, John, to be honest with you. I think we saw the shot. Here he is losing it now, of course, further on in the stadium. And of course, fortunately for him, the car actually stays very flat, John. Do you notice that? Very
Michael Schumacher has come into the pits. This, I believe, is a precautionary pit stop. There's no obvious sign that anything wrong with Schumacher's Ferrari, but have people been having tyre problems? Could it be a blistered rear tyre? That's the product of sliding around. Michael Schumacher gets back into this Grand Prix. The left rear tyre on Schumacher's car was blistered. They decided, in light of what happened to Giancarlo Fisichella, they had to bring him in there. Mika Häkkinen in third place comes out, can now see Michael Schumacher. The battle of this Grand Prix, topsy-turvy Grand Prix, very little going on at the start. The excitement now in these closing laps is absolutely kinetic.
Of course, Michael having a really good look in his mirror as he came down there, but remember, he's the one with the new tyres right now, and you're going to see some blistering laps from Michael Schumacher. He's going to really get away, because remember, Häkkinen and Trulli behind, they have got the worn tyres. And in my book, there's no way those two should be staying with Michael Schumacher at this stage of the race.
Let's look at the classification. Gerhard Berger, Michael Schumacher, Mika Häkkinen, Jarno Trulli, Ralf Schumacher, Jean Alesi. And what disappointment for young Giancarlo Fisichella. An absolutely superb effort from Fisichella and from the Jordan team in total. They've come of age a little bit in this Grand Prix, Derek.
It makes you just wonder what poor old Eddie Jordan and his guys have got to do to win a Grand Prix, but my goodness, they weren't about to win this.
Fisichella is retiring. He's creeping along. I suspect the damage from that left rear when the tyre flailed around the bodywork. His race is done, but he is a star. He has emerged, and Benetton have taken that star, Derek, in 1998. A championship contender without doubt.
No doubt at all, John, that's for sure. But isn't it wonderful to see this man, Berger? Remember, this poor guy was leading this race up till 3 laps from the end of the race last year, and the engine blew and gave it to Damon Hill. That's going to be tragic for it to happen again, but I think Gerhard, let's pray and hope he's on his way to victory.
Well, Gerhard Berger comfortably in the lead. Michael Schumacher runs in second place. We're going to take a very rapid commercial break. Stay with us to return to the conclusion of this afternoon's German Grand Prix. Michael Schumacher and Niki Lauda's face impassive as he watches the contortions of Schumacher's Ferrari around the chicane. So 3 laps to go. Gerhard Berger dominating. Absolutely magnificent Grand Prix on the return. 32nd advantage over Michael Schumacher. Schumacher getting now 6 points, eking out a 10-point advantage over Villeneuve. So Villeneuve's error at this point of track has paid him very expensively indeed. Mika Häkkinen, good drive, strong drive from the Finn in third place. Remember, after that episode with Frentzen, Irvine, Coulthard, if Frank Williams is looking to replace Frentzen, I believe this is the man his eyes are on. Remember, his manager, Keke Rosberg, won a world championship for Frank Williams back in 1982. The sod beat me.
But of course, let's not forget, John, of course, that Häkkinen, people have said, but why hasn't he shone till now? He had that horrific accident in Melbourne 2 years ago when he really should never have come back from it. He's had to contend with that, and you know, having injured yourself, you know darn well, and other drivers know well, when you've had a bad accident, it does take the icing off the cake for a while. You just don't feel as committed as you used to. And also, I think Mika's been in the development of this program. I don't necessarily think he's the most outstanding development driver, but I think now he's got a car with a very, very strong engine. The car is being developed. They've got Adrian Newey there, and I think now he can see that he's got the best package. He is, or a very, very good package. He's now really making it talk.
Ralf Schumacher, difficult race for the young German. In 5th place, lost a lot of ground at the start. Jean Alesi, of course, on a 2-stop strategy and didn't have the advantage that Gerhard Berger had. And really, sadly for Alesi, he came out behind this battling group of Häkkinen and Trulli. Villeneuve was included, Ralf Schumacher, and unable to make any impression whatsoever. And while Flavio Briatore said in that sort of rather broken English of his that, I don't know where Alesi goes, maybe he stayed at Benetton in 98, I don't know. Well, in my opinion, Jean Alesi is on the driver market, along with many other people, and in particular after this afternoon's Grand Prix. If Benetton continue to win this Grand Prix, it will make 27 Grand Prix wins. It's Gerhard Berger's 203rd Grand Prix, and this could be his 10th Grand Prix career win.
fact, Williams have had 7 wins at Hockenheim, and 4 of their wins have been in the last 6 races, John. But today has been a dismal story as far as Williams are concerned. And Jacques Villeneuve must be very, very upset not to have picked up just a few points, because I'm sure he felt he would salvage something out of this.
I think Williams could have come here with the assumption that they could have gotten at least 10 points in the Constructors' Championship, have both drivers finishing the points, and close down the gap between Jacques Villeneuve and Michael Schumacher. Well, that strategy didn't work, and going in 2 weeks' time to the Hungaroring in Hungary, an absolutely different circuit to what we have here at Hockenheim. A new race, a new opportunity, but when your luck starts to run out, it isn't luck. You've just got to turn the thing round, and that's what Frank Williams and Patrick Head are going to have to do. Get their guys in, sit down and tell them this is not good enough. And at the same time as giving the drivers a hard time, they've got to look at themselves and say, why are we not getting the job done?
Well, I'm sure there'll be a lot of soul searching done on Monday and Tuesday when they all get back to Didcot. But of course, there's been a lot of good efforts done. I think the way Berger's been driving is outstanding, but let's just forget how well Schumacher does. Every race he's finishing up in those points. He doesn't seem to make mistakes, and he really is in a class of his own. He really does show why he's been world champion twice, and I think should be world champion again this year. He doesn't seem to make mistakes. Here we go onto the final lap. What a wonderful moment for Gerhard Berger, and of course the German fans. I think Michael Schumacher coming home a second behind Berger, and of course Berger has a little bit of German in him. He just lives down the road in Austria. Let's just ride with Michael Schumacher. Oh, we don't.
Well, scenes of jubilation for Michael Schumacher. He's finishing second, but to the German fans and the Schumacher fans, he's won not just a Grand Prix, but a World Championship already.
I think it just shows how, what a very wise, shrewd move that was. No doubt of Ross Brawn's and Michael's together, and of course John Todt. But to run that Step 1 engine, to run the older engine, the older, more proven engine, not as much power, not as much torque, and in fact probably not as much revs. But the engine has proved to be reliable, and really there hasn't been a race of mechanical attrition apart from the 2 Fords, which have blown themselves to the door all the way. I've never seen smoke like it.
That's true. A lot of incident, contact, driver error. But Gerhard Berger makes his way down for the last time in a racing lap. The 4th of these long straights comes. Oh, this is Michael Schumacher who have jumped to now, but we were with race leader Gerhard Berger, and we should stay with him as the Benetton team had long 2-year drought. The last time they won a Grand Prix was back in Japan in 1995, when Michael Schumacher sealed the 2nd of his World Championship victories. Gerhard Berger's 10th Grand Prix win comes into the stadium. He won his first Grand Prix in 1986 back in Austria, and here he comes across the line. A great win. Look at the jubilation and joy. I think Gerhard Berger is Superman here this afternoon. Michael Schumacher makes his way round for the last time. The crowd, the flags, the horns, the fireworks. Derek, it was like this back in 1970 in Formula 2, but for now, it's for Michael Schumacher. And isn't it fantastic? Mika Häkkinen comes across the line. 3rd for McLaren and Mercedes-Benz. So the German fans at Hockenheim have had Austrian Berger win, Schumacher, German in a Ferrari 2nd, Mika Häkkinen with Mercedes-Benz Power 3rd. They've had game, set and match this afternoon.
Outstanding drive, just an outstanding drive from Berger. It'd be quite amazing if the bloke was to say, that's it, I hang up my helmet now. It's the sort of thing he could do, boy. And he's dominated the weekend.
Absolutely. I mean, a magnificent drive from Gerhard Berger. So Flavio Briatore immediately taking the interviews. We're going to go to a quick commercial break as we see Gerhard Berger enjoy the fruits of his afternoon's victory here in Hockenheim, to see them on the podium. Welcome back, and here the stadium in Hockenheim is going ballistic. They are overjoyed with their afternoon's Formula 1 sport. Gerhard Berger wins, Michael Schumacher is 2nd, Mika Häkkinen 3rd, and Gerhard Berger, 37 years old, 3-race sabbatical for illness. Remember, he's had to deal with the tragedy of his father's death some 2 weeks ago in a private flying accident. Came back, but there, a moment I think is probably the most poignant of the day. Giancarlo Fisichella, a man who was en route to become a first-time Grand Prix winner. Okay, Gerhard Berger did overtake him, and then unbeknown he must have had a tyre problem, probably blistering, and that caused a tyre delamination. Michael Schumacher has stopped around the circuit to acknowledge the outstanding achievement of young Fisichella. Ralf Schumacher, well, he finishes down in 5th place, and that's a major learning curve. But Gerhard Berger back into the winner's circle as Giancarlo, I don't know how he's managed to stay on the back of the airbox of the Ferrari and hold his helmet and not fall off. But I want to see the look on Gerhard Berger's face, because Derek, you talked about you supported the more mature Grand Prix driver. You're, I believe, absolutely right as well. Unfortunately, Formula One is on a youth kick right now, but there are places for Gerhard Berger and others. Look at that sea of red. Ferrari support. Gerhard Berger wins. Michael Schumacher second. Mika Häkkinen third. Jarno Trulli first, points in fourth. Ralf Schumacher squeaks in fifth, and John Alesi gets that final 1 point for himself and for Benetton. Gerhard Berger looks very quiet, calm, relaxed. And there, look at Michael Schumacher. Fisichella, gonna be 2 stars. Public love it. There are the hands of Gerhard Berger. He always tapes his palms up. He gets blisters. I don't know why, because he doesn't have to change gear with his hand. It's all done by those little paddle levers. Flavio Briatore, hat on, back to front. That's always a sign that Flavio's in the ascendancy once again. And Gerhard, what are you talking about? I tell you what, there's something going on between those two, and it isn't all sunshine and light.
He's not happy about something. Gerhard didn't look like it when he got out of the car, and when Briatore was walking along beside him, he wasn't keen at all. But there's obviously something happened. There's some signals or something. He just wasn't happy with something that took place during that race. I can see, obviously, that Fisichella used to be a jockey in his spare time, because he sits there just as if he's on a racehorse.
Let's have a look and see where we stand in the Drivers' Championship. Michael Schumacher extends that lead to 53 points. A full race, 10 points ahead of Villeneuve, who must be going home with tears. Jean Alesi, 1 more point today, but Gerhard Berger, the big winner, goes up to 4th place with those 10 points for a win. Heinz-Harald Frentzen remains in 5th place, and I tell you, he's got a lot of work to do to keep his position. Ferrari retain their, in fact, extend their advantage, 71 points to Williams' 62. Benetton consolidated 3rd with 46, McLaren in 4th, 28. Prost get to 5th place with 19, and Jordan in 6th place with 17. But Jordan can rue the position that Fisichella should have given them 6 points. They should have found themselves up in 5th place in the Constructors' Championship. There we see confirmation from the FIA of those driver points. And now we wait for Gerhard Berger, Michael Schumacher and Mika Häkkinen to make the way up onto the podium. Gerhard and Flavio, not really, the body language is a little bit strange. Well, you know, say something, for goodness sake. Don't look at him like that.
You don't know what he's thinking about, John. There's obviously something that really has upset him. Good drive, of course, Ralph. This is the 4th time he's finished a race, and each time he finishes in the points. He needs to finish a few more in the points. He'll be right up there.
Just looking through the record books, of course, Gerhard Berger back in 1986 when he drove for the Benetton team and they were still running turbocharged BMW engines. That was a maiden Benetton victory a long time ago, some 11 years in Mexico. There we see the acknowledgements from the Austrian, and how appropriate also to win here, Derek. He dominated the Grand Prix last year, 2 laps from the end. Catastrophic engine failure, very rare from Renault, and Damon Hill sneaked a victory, which of course assisted Damon's progress towards his World Championship. But there, I think the man that most hearts will go out for, Giancarlo Fisichella. Certainly an extremely popular young man, not least of all because he's a bit of a looker, isn't he?
Yeah, well, some of the people say so at ESPN as well, I gather, but nevertheless, it was actually, I thought, a very sort of, what one would say, mature drive from Fisichella. Outstanding drive, but remember, you know, that he actually was overtaken by Berger and didn't hold him up. I thought that was a very mature way of driving, and I've seen him drive very mature in a lot of races this year, far more than Ralf Schumacher, I must say.
Looking back, Derek, of course, what we don't realise is that Giancarlo clearly was in some form of trouble. I suspect that the blistering that he must have picked up led to that tyre problem, and nothing he could do. Let's listen to the anthems for Gerhard Berger, the Austrian anthem. welcome back. We're having another view of these wonderful slow-mo shots that they're so fond of in Germany. But Derek, let's have a review of what occurred in this afternoon's Grand Prix. And we're still really not entirely clear as to why Frentzen, Irvine and Coulthard all got tangled somewhere on that opening lap. And of course Frentzen's blaming Irvine saying, well, I got hit from behind. A mess.
I think what you can't see when you watch these replays is the fact that all the guys are shuffling position. As long as they're all accelerating forward, it's all very well. But of course, if somebody in front gets sideways, it slows the guy down behind. He backs off, and of course there's a concertina effect, and the other people all nail into one another. And I think that's what happened coming out of the corner, because they were doing well into the corner. I mean, shuffling around a lot, but nobody seemed to have contact. And then of course you did see Eddie Irvine in the Ferrari dive across the road. And I think that might have set up a bit of a chain reaction, because maybe one side of the grid was running a bit faster or slower than the other. And of course, I think they just had contact with the wings. Their end plates actually got dug into tyres, and I think that was really the start of the rot. It wouldn't surprise me if actually Frentzen's wing actually went into Eddie's rear tyre and then punctured his own right front tyre. And they were the two offending tyres in the incident, weren't they? So that wouldn't surprise me. That's what happened. Of course, David Coulthard became part of the incident as well. But then, you know, it is so vital to get to that first section quickly. But I mean, these guys are in 750 horsepower cars, all trying to tame their cars as they come onto the straight, and there they are, sort of mingling it around like a Formula 3 or a Formula Atlantic race.
We had 11 retirements in the race. Tarsa Marquez was the first, then the trio of... Oh, here we go, let's hear the press conference.
Here in 1994, so it must be a fantastic feeling to be here today.
Yeah, I mean, I just can repeat again what I said already after the pole position. I think I get some special power somewhere. I think I know from where it's coming, and I'm very, very happy about it.
What did you think when you came out after your second pit stop and saw Fisichella in front of you?
Well, I nearly lost the race because somebody blew off the engine on the straight, and it was so foggy I couldn't see the road anymore, so I had to nearly stop the car, and I lost about 4 or 5 seconds. And I know myself, I said, no, I think I lost the race. And I was quite surprised that I was so close that I just couldn't do it about 1 second. But then Giancarlo made a mistake in the second chicane, and I could overtake him straight away. And yeah, it just works. Everything works together.
You got pole position here, fastest lap and victory. Could this be the start of a Benetton resurgence, do you think?
Well, obviously it shows that we have some potential. We have some potential since the beginning of the season. For different circumstances, we couldn't use it in the right way. This is a circuit, a kind of circuit, where it looks like we are right, we are competitive, we are quick. Next race is a completely different characteristic, and I'm going to be very interested how we look there. And I mean, one thing I believe that we're going to be competitive until the end of the season. But of course, we was not dominating today. We had the right strategy. I had a good start. I was on ball. Everything worked together. So we wasn't the end in the front, but it's no reason to believe we are ahead. I think we are competitive, and I think we have some good chance the rest of the season to have points and podium places.
Gerhard, well done.
Thank you.
Michael, you started 4th and finished 2nd. A pretty good result in front of the home crowd.
Yeah. Very pleased. I mean, after what happened in the practice, I couldn't hope for better, especially with the problems we had in the race. Obviously, I had to do an extra pit stop because of some problems on the fuel rig, I guess. Plus, I was missing my 5th gear from halfway through the race, which wasn't very easy for me to run the race like this.
Were you pressured by Mika Hakkinen towards the end? Were you a bit worried about him?
Yeah, obviously we knew at a certain stage we had some problems, and I had to come in for another pit stop, so I had to push very hard. The problem was at this stage that my tires were gone, as I was behind the lazy for quite a while, and I destroyed my tires there more than I would have normally done. So it was difficult to pull out the gap, which at the end was just enough to come ahead of Mika.
It must have been a relief to hear that Jacques Villeneuve had dropped out. How did you find out about that?
I basically asked at the end who is in the first 6, and they told me that Villeneuve was apparently out of the race, which, I mean, I don't like to win the championship by somebody dropping out of the race. I'd like to fight and beat someone. But to be honest, I think we had been quicker all weekend, so it's fair that we scored this 2nd position from this point, I'd like to congratulate to Gerhard, which made an impressive comeback. And so for the championship, things go well.
Michael, well done. Mika, your first time on the podium since Australia. A bit of a surprise to be here, maybe?
Well, not really. Not to be surprised here, but it's definitely a long time since the Melbourne to be on the podium, and there's been some various reasons why I haven't been here so often. So let's hope I've been able to in the future to come to visit you more often.
How happy were you with your pit stop strategy? Do you think maybe 2 stops would have suited you better?
It was a situation where 2-stop tactics, you can definitely you are able to win a race if you are on a condition like Gerhard was on the front row, and if you lead in the first corner, it helps a lot. But if you're not in that situation, it's very difficult. So that was the decision for us to choose the 1 stop.
Mika, well done. Gerhard, any thoughts on going to Hungary, where you normally have a big following?
Yeah, I go testing next week to Silverstone, then I have to do a bit fitness training. I have to catch up a little bit, because Hungary is physically very hard circuit. Usually it's very hot there. And I'm really looking forward to go there, because I like the circuit very much.
And now can we have some comments on the race?
Well,
in your own
Gerhard
language?
Berger and everybody else, their life never ends. They're going to go testing at Silverstone. Gerhard Berger, a winner here this afternoon. So while they continue in their own language, we're going to take a quick break. Stay with us, we'll be back. Well, a Grand Prix that lasted only 1 hour and 20 minutes, Derek. It seemed to go in about 20 minutes. Giancarlo Fisichella, the star, but look at all this action. Johnny Herbert, Pedro Diniz. There's, of course, Ralf Schumacher. We followed him for quite some time, but he didn't really shine in the German Grand Prix. Big Brother, of course, benefited from other people's misfortune. But what a surprise and supreme result for Gerhard Berger. But this man, Giancarlo Fisichella, really, our hearts go out for him. Great battle that went on there through the field. Mika Häkkinen, of course, got it onto 3rd on the podium. Derek, give us quickly your views of this afternoon.
Well, I thought Fisichella's drive was outstanding. Obviously, we're going to see a lot more of him in the future. I don't think one should be disturbed, obviously, for him to get faster and faster every week. I'm disappointed in Ralf Schumacher, but I just don't think he's as complete a driver as Fisichella. Fisichella makes some very, very astute moves. He uses his brain a lot. But I thought Berger's drive was outstanding. Häkkinen, I think, has done a great job, of course, again in the Mercedes McLaren. And of course, we saw some great drives from everybody. I thought Gerhard Berger's was just the most outstanding piece of work I've seen in a long time.
Yes, and I think this was probably the most sad moment of the day when Fisichella made his way into the stadium limping on 3 wheels on his wagon. So, remember, 2 weeks' time, we are at the Hungaro Grand Prix. For ESPN, this is John Watson thanking Derek Bell and Jonathan Green. Hope you enjoyed the show and join us in Hungary. This has been a presentation of ESPN, worldwide leader in sport.